Hello, my name is Doug Leisure. I wanted to record this video to show you printing donor lists in the new version for 2024. So I can tell you at our church, when we are collecting and counting our donations, one of the things we do is we look at our donor list, which we tape to the wall of the room that we do our counting, and we look up at the donor list and say, oh, there's John, he's number 37, and we write 37 on the envelope. It's just a nice convenient way to identify the donor numbers that go along with the names on the envelopes, and we do that right before we start entering everything. And so printing the donor list is pretty important. But I need to go through a couple of steps with you, especially as your list of donors grows, so that you can print it at a size that you can easily read. And I'll explain that here in just a second. But let's take a look at the donor list that we have currently. So we're just getting started in this particular sample church, so there's not a lot of donors. So when you print it, this will easily fit on a page in a way that's readable. But what do you need to do as things grow? So let's first of all take a look at printing the donor list. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take us over to the parameters for just one quick second. So within the parameters, one of the things you'll want to adjust as you're testing things when it comes to printing is this question here, this parameter. Do you want me to ask you about using the printer dialog box whenever you're printing? Yes or no? Should I ask to use the printer dialog box? So what you want to do when I send it out to you by default, it'll be set to no. So you want to switch that over to yes. And what happens when you do this is that whenever you print, so let's go ahead and say I want to print the donor list. It's going to ask the question, hey, would you like me to open the printer dialog box when you're printing your donor list? And so if we say yes to this, then when the software goes through the steps of doing the printing, it'll open up this printer dialog box. And from here, one of the most helpful things, not the only thing you can do, but one of the very, very most helpful things, is that you can see a preview of what will get printed when you go ahead and print it to your printer. So being able to preview whatever you're going to print is a really nice way to see how things are going to look, and also to help you understand what Excel is doing to your printout as you're saying I'd like to print. So this will be true of printing donor lists, receipts, the monthly reports, the 5-year comparison, your income versus expense kind of reports. All of these things, it's very helpful to be able to preview it before you just simply have to print it on paper. So we'll go ahead and close down this little dialog box. I just wanted you to see what that was about. So let's step back to printing the donor list for just a second. Okay, so when you print, I guess one of the things you need to understand about the donor list is that the donor number, the donor name. Oh, this is really important for us to have this information when you're printing, because that's what we would be looking up later. Oh, Natalie gave us an envelope full of cash. We need to record that. What's Natalie's number? And so looking up at the donor list and seeing that Natalie is person number 2 is extremely helpful. You'll notice that when I was all done printing, it actually left the names in alphabetical order, and that's by design and intentional. That when you say I'm going to print the donor list, it first of all alphabetizes it and then prints it. That's so that as you're looking up names, you can find them most easily when they are alphabetically listed. Now in this sample, we're doing the person's first name and their last name. I think probably a lot of times as you're working with families and family members and stuff, you'll probably find the best way to do your donor list is last name, comma, first name, or last name Smith, comma, husband and wife, Jan and Bill and Sally, that kind of a thing. You'll probably find that to be most helpful. but you'll see in the sample it is just simply listed by the first name, then the last name. So therefore, alphabetically, it's going to be by first name. Okay, in addition to the donor number and name, you optionally can fill in the address, an email address. This is an important column here, whether we want to print a receipt for them. But you actually, in your software, you are free to add other pieces of information in your donor list, additional columns, if you want to think of it that way, of other information. So the donor list can actually get to be pretty lengthy, pretty wide, and a lot of information. So that is why whenever you say you want to print the donor list, okay, this is just a dialog box, but when you're printing the donor list, you will always get this question: would you like to print all of the columns in the donor list? And you click yes for all columns, or no if you want to only print column A and B, the donor number and the donor name. And I would say probably it's pretty rare that you want to print everything, and I think it's extremely common that you only want to print donor number and name, because that's typically what you want to use when you're doing the lookup. Whether you just lay the donor list in front of you, whether you tape it to the wall like we do, whatever is most helpful, but the donor number and name is really all that you need. So I just wanted to explain that question, what it means and why. So if you say yes, then I'm going to get all of these columns A through F. But if you say no, it's going to sort everything and then only print columns A and B, the donor number, the donor name, again in alphabetical order. Okay, so that's pretty neat. That's good helpful information for you. Oh, I'm sorry. And then it says, after printing it that way, it asks the question: would you like to also print the donor list in numerical order? If for some reason you have a need for being able to have things listed numerically based on the donor number followed by the name, you get a chance to do that as well. I would suspect that rarely do you need the list in numerical order, but I just want you to know that is an option for you to print that as well. So it does ask that question as well, and I'm going to go ahead and say no again, because I think rarely do you need it also in numerical order. So I'll say no to that. Okay, let's circle back here again, and what you'll see is that when we printed it with this short list, there's not a lot of stuff there. So easily this will fit on a single page without any problems. And please remember that the donor list, this entire tab is yours. It's not protected at all. So that's why you can add your additional columns. You can easily add additional donors. But the other thing you might want to consider doing is changing the font. I'm going to go back here to the Home tab here, the Home ribbon or menu. And right here we have the option to increase the font size. Now again, especially for us when we tape it on the wall, if it's too small, we can't read it. So we can increase the font and much more easily read our list of donors. So I've increased the font, and in fact, if we go back and print the donor list, yes, open the dialog box. I want to be able to preview it. No, so we get only the two columns. All right. I don't know if you could see from before, but the font is larger than the previous time I did this preview. Okay. Here's the important thing you need to understand. When we are printing the donor list, we are using an option inside of Excel that says, when you print it, I want you, Excel, to change the font size to force what we're printing to fit on one page. We're going to force it onto one page. So what that means is, as your list grows, even though you've increased the font size on the worksheet on this tab, Excel might be shrinking the font size behind the scenes so that it can force it to fit on one page. Here's how you get around that and make it work the way you want to. So first of all, I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead and put in a much larger donor list. All right, give me 1 second. We're going to do that. Oh, and then let's see. Well, we don't care about the email address, the printing, yes or no, for the sake of what we're trying to explain and show today. But we do need to make sure they all have the same font size. So let's go back here, Format Painter, and we'll apply the same format down through the entire list. And again, what I'm trying to show here is that concept of increasing the font size so I can print something that's readable, and then controlling what Excel is doing in their in its effort to force it to one page. So you can see now we have basically 101 donors, so there's no way this is going to fit on one page and still be readable. I mean, Excel can shrink it down, not a problem, but I'm not going to be able to read it. So I just wanted to show you in the new version for 2024, I gave you a new parameter down here under, let's find the donor list, and it says the number of pages to print for the donor list. It's set right now to 1, which means, hey Excel, shrink it and force it to fit on one page. So I'm not sure if what I'm printing here, in order to make it large enough and readable, so it's readable, I'm not sure if I need 2 pages or 3 pages. Let's start with 2. Okay, so we're going to switch it from 1, force it to 1 page. Now it's saying go ahead and force it, but onto 2 pages. Let's preview it and see what we get. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and go back to print the donor list. Open the printer dialog box. Yes, so we can preview it. And do you want to print all the columns? No, so we only do donor number and donor name. Okay, and again, you can see behind the scenes, it sorted it so that it is alphabetically listed. And now we can preview this. All right, so what we're seeing now is page 1, and that's the size that will be printed. Let's do it again. Next page, and there it is coming out on 2 pages. And I'll be honest, for my eyes, that still looks a little bit small. So let's go ahead and close this, and let's go back to our parameters and let's switch that to 3. We're just again experimenting and playing around till we are happy with what it is doing and how it's going to how we can adjust the font size on the tab and the number of printed pages in the parameters so that we get the results we're looking for. Okay, without changing the font size yet, let's go ahead and take a look then at what happens when we print it, but we say force it to 3 pages instead of 2. Open the dialog box so we can preview it. Okay, I can see already that this is much larger than we had previously. So there's page 1, page 2, and page 3. And that's, to me, that's probably going to be very readable once I print it out on the paper, through the printer to the paper. So I think that's what you're looking for, is just play around, as I said, with the font size here. And again, I was just using the simple thing. You could pick it by number, or you could just simply hit the button to increase it until you're happy with it. So increase the font size on the donor tab. On the parameters, adjust the number of pages to print for the donor list, and work on those 2 things. And I think previewing it is your best way then to see what it's going to look like before you waste the paper and print it. Okay, those were the things I wanted to cover in today's video. Thank you.